Question: is the white man a devil?
Amen.
Answer yes? Well then, this video's for you, because we're about to look at 10 times white folks shocked the black world. More specifically, we're looking at 10 white folks who, well before Dr. Schultz teamed up with Django, were standing up not for, but with the global black nation. Okay, these were devils, that's for sure, but not in the way you might think, because some of what these Caucasian brothers and sisters did for the cause will surprise, even shock you. So word of advice: grab something strong, hit those delicious looking like and subscribe buttons. Go on now, look how juicy they are. Look at that one right there. Look at how juicy, look at the juice dripping off it. Juice. Okay, and brace yourself for some incredible stories. Like this one here. This is Allan Ramsay. Allan Ramsay was a painter, but a painter unlike any other from his generation. See, Charles Dickens called this woman plain. Sir Walter Scott said she was ill-coloured. The Prime Minister said her nose is too wide and her lips too thick. And her doctor called her face a true mulatto face. Okay, so now you're saying, I see the plain, but where the wide nose and the thick lips at? And the mulatto face? Well, try looking at the right painting for a start, like this one, done by Allan Ramsay himself. Truth is, in the 18th and 19th century, with the British Empire on the rise and slavery yet to be abolished, nobody really wanted to admit the king's wife actually had black ancestry. So they often painted Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg like this and this. Until Allan Ramsay came along and decided to paint what he saw and not what he was told to paint. Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Now, we all know how bad the denial can be among the Euro folks. It's 2024 and they're still telling us Africans who sculpted themselves looking like this couldn't have been black. According to them, the Egyptians were, wait for it, white Africans. And hey, don't you go believe in your lying eyes now. No, looky here at my cereal box DNA study instead. And what's that over there? I can see Egypt from my backyard.
Egypt faces the Mediterranean. I am Mediterranean. My sea, my history too.
Well, some of these same people say the idea that Queen Charlotte was black is, quote, laughable. Like this guy, historian Andrew Roberts, in this article by the very reputable New York Post. Really, Roberts? Laughable? Even when her ancestry has been traced back to the Moorish mistress of King Alfonso III of Portugal. Oh, but yeah, I forgot, the Moors were never black. Guess Shakespeare missed that memo, and the Germans and the Dutch and the ancient Romans. And Vice Admiral Alexander Cochrane in 1812, who confessed to blacks in America that, quote, the Queen of England is a Negro woman. Meanwhile, Allan Ramsay, one of the keenest anti-slavery protesters of his day, also tried to out the royal family's secret using his art. Anytime he was asked to paint the Queen, he refused to let her go as white passing, instead choosing to do her right. And you just know Mr. Ramsay was an honest painter, because when others were painting one lady rush out like this, he was painting her like this. Okay, you speak your truth now, Mr. Ramsay. Anyway, you can bet Ramsay wasn't one of those at court dissing Charlotte for her thick lips. Huh.
Guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
And love it they do. Queen Charlotte probably inspired this fashion trend too, the crinoline. Know what I mean? Okay, some of these clearly got ridiculous. But hey, what was that Tupac said?
Some things will never change.
Anywho, thank you Mr. Allan Ramsay for going against the grain and preserving the truth in living color for future generations. You sly devil, you. Not like the guy who drew this cartoon. A through and through hater who chose to draw this majestic Zulu king as little better than a monkey. But believe it or not, there's someone the creator of this cartoon hated more than the black king Cetshwayo. And it's the other characters in this work. Who exactly were they? Well, the cartoonist labels them unflatteringly as Saul and his pets. That's Saul as in Saul Solomon, famous politician and entrepreneur who fought for the rights of black South Africans during the 1800s. Way back then, South Africa was only just beginning to establish itself as Disney World for this lot, and was still a collection of white-ruled states under British colonial authority. That didn't faze Saul Solomon one bit, who was busy fighting to guarantee equal voting and worker rights for the indigenous inhabitants of Cape Colony. Solomon's fellow lawmakers often walked out on him whenever he stood to speak on behalf of black South Africans, to which he once responded, "I would rather address empty benches than empty minds." These same colleagues of his would even go on to brand him a Negrophile, which is a rather English way of saying, "That there boy's nothing but a lover." Was Saul Solomon bothered by any of this? Not according to historical accounts. In fact, he took pride in it. Even when the infamous Gordon Sprigg administration cancelled all his government contracts. His pets in this cartoon were none other than the Lion of Beaufort, former Prime Minister of Cape Colony, John Charles Moltenot, who used his power to legislate for the rights of blacks. And then there's John X. Merriman, depicted above Saul as a monkey. None of these shenanigans deterred Saul Solomon in the least. He fought till the bitter end when he was ousted from South African politics. Although they lost the battle, in the long run, history records that Saul and his greats would win the war. Certified white devils. Number 8 white devil literally started a war, the American Civil War. Abraham Lincoln is said to have said to Harriet Beecher Stowe when he first met her, "So this is the little lady who started this great war." Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, influenced and mobilized thousands, even millions, of white Americans to fight and die in the American Civil War in a bid to end slavery. Now, a lot of you might say, come on, number 8 is the woman who gave us the infamous Uncle Tom, as in Jesse Lee Peterson Uncle Tom or James Manning Uncle Tom. No and no, in that order. Take it from someone who's actually read the book and not others who use its title character to insult without actually having read the thing. Yes, Tom was submissive when it came to his own liberty, but when it came to other people's, Tom was a bad brother, helping many escape slavery in the South again and again. Spoiler alert if you've not read the book but you intend to. Tom helped others in the book escape slavery at the cost of his own life, choosing not to give away the location of escaped slaves even while he was being beaten to death. Now I get it. In an era when America was fixing to go to war over slavery, no, Uncle Tom didn't quite suit the mood of many blacks who were fed up and wanted to just kick booty and take booty. Still, that takes nothing away from the massive influence Uncle Tom's Cabin had at the time, rising to be America's best-selling book for all of the second half of the 19th century, next only to the Bible. Such was the book's influence that you could argue is the reason we still drink at the fountain of many a salty whites who swear up and down today that the South shall rise again. Pass me that there Jack Daniels, boy. Major kudos goes to abolitionist and writer Harriet Beecher Stowe, whose pen was a pitchfork mightier than any sword of her day. That there a she-devil, yes sir. At 7 is a man who did his part for the anti-slavery cause too, and then some. William Wilberforce teamed up with former slave trader turned pastor John Newton and many others in his day to start a campaign that would end in the British government abolishing slavery across an empire. In 1787, Wilberforce helped to found something called the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade. Not the catchiest, no, never said he was Eminem now, but he was a leader. Known as the ringleader of the famous Clapham sect, Wilberforce poured the whole of his political career into one cause: end slavery. In 1807, after almost 2 decades campaigning and aged 71, Wilberforce thought he'd finally won. Parliament passed a bill to abolish slavery in the West Indies. But imagine old Billy Boy's heart attack when he read the small print on the new law which said it didn't free people who had been made slaves before the law was passed.
Gotcha, bitch!
never mind, because Wilberforce and his friends carried on the fight till in 1813 a law was passed to end slavery indefinitely, this time with no small print trickery and no gotcha moves. As far as the British were concerned, slavery was done, finito. But I say we are now going to transition for the next 300 years into owning black people's countries instead. Okay, at this stage, even Wilberforce checked out, giving up the ghost at the ripe old age of 77. Certified devil in his life, but singing with the angels as we speak. Right, so while we're on the topic of slavery, here's part of the story they won't teach you in history class. Freedom wasn't something whites the world over gave to enslaved blacks purely out of the goodness of their heart. For the most part, we took it. In fact, the abolition of slavery by the English was their way of managing the increasingly well-organized and successful slave rebellions in the Americas. Remember the trick legislation Wilberforce had to deal with in 1807? That bill passed just 3 years after the enslaved blacks of Haiti defeated the greatest navy in the world at the time, Napoleon Bonaparte's, establishing history's most successful slave rebellion since the Mamluks. Something else the historians don't often tell you is that on the road to defeating their French masters, the blacks of Saint-Domingue put the fear of you-know-who into our number 6 entry. Meet Napoleon's Polish Legion, who under this guy, Colonel Jan Henryk Dąbrowski, were dispatched to put down the Haitian Revolution in Saint-Domingue in 1802. But a funny thing happened down in the Caribbean. See, the Poles witnessed the horrors of slavery firsthand, and it wasn't no
Under the sea. Under the sea.
Now, when you mention the Poles and slavery, these weren't some snowflakes. The Poles knew what slavery was. Matter of fact, the word slave is from Slav, referring to Eastern European people like Poles who had been used and abused with next to no rights by their Russian neighbors and other Europeans for centuries, well before the transatlantic slave trade got going. But imagine how bad things must have been in Haiti that even Slavic whites sent to quell the rebellion there said, nah, this is wrong. Combine that with the capabilities of the Haitian fighters, which many Polish soldiers saw up close and lost their lives to, the Poles quickly did the maths and quiet as kept switched sides, joining the great Haitian general Toussaint Louverture and his rebels in their cause. Blending European military strategies with Haitian guerrilla tactics, Haiti eventually defeated the French in 1804. And you won't believe this, but Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Haiti's leader after the revolution, declared that the Polish soldiers and their children were to be considered black, granting these white devils the same rights and privileges as the rest of the population. Certifié diablan. Okay, Creole Nation, post in the comments if my Creole there was trash. Meanwhile, let's forget Napoleon trying to keep the brothers down in the Caribbean. Another Frenchman was screaming to the rooftops about our greatness. This is Comte de Volney, one of the fathers of Egyptology. Born into an upper-class French family, Volney would probably have seen blacks like a lot of his fellow French aristocrats did, until he traveled to Egypt. Listen to what he wrote after seeing the statues, the architecture, the culture of the ancient Egyptians for himself. Quote, "When I visited the Sphinx, when I saw its features precisely those of a Negro, I recollected the remarkable passage of Herodotus, in which he says, 'For my part, I believe the Colchians to be a colony of Egyptians because like them, they have black skin and frizzled hair.' That is, that the ancient Egyptians were real Negroes of the same species with all the natives of Africa." End quote. That there was Volney basically making the same confession as many who came after him would in Egyptology's early days. Simply put, that ancient Egypt was a black African civilization. But what makes Volney special is that he didn't try and suppress or play down this fact like many quote-unquote unbiased white academics do today.
In the beginning, when man arrived on Earth, the black gods did leave their spacecraft and they walked and they named the beasts of the sea and the animals of the land.
Heavens.
And man in his blackness did walk the earth, making medicine.
Medicine?
Then discovered type. These were all black people got down. Wait a minute. There ain't nothing in here about whitey. This is ours, Jack. Wait till the brothers hear this.
Puna!
I'm gonna get this book out of here, baby. This tells me real tea. Check this out.
Control yourself, don't you see?
What you mean, Jack? Look at this here. Black people started the music and the brain surgery back in the year 3 BC.
Yes, of course, Puna.
Man, they was getting down. This is it, brother.
Yes,
Everybody
boss.
gonna know about this. This book. We can change the history. Civilization will be changed.
By all means.
Yeah, this is gonna be it.
Get the bulldozers, there's nothing here.
But.
Shut up! Good heavens, time for tea, eh? What?
Yeah, just like that. Instead, Volney wrote home about what he saw in his book, Travels Through Syria and Egypt. Don't sleep on Volney, folks. What he did was actually quite hard to do if you've been told all your life that you're naturally superior to another group of people. And now you have to come out and say, you know those people who we said weren't worth squat? Yeah, actually, from maths to medicine to language, they gave us everything. But Volney didn't care, as he confessed later in his book, quote, "To the race of Negroes we owe our arts, sciences, and even the very use of speech," end quote. Volney went for broke, folks. He went all Cat Williams on the cabal. And thanks to him, we know that when some folks look at all of this and say, yeah, they were probably multicultural, we know they're lying. And we know that they know they're lying. So for that, Volney is the man at number 5. Or should I say, Diable Blanc. Number 4 is a woman who had a mind like Volney's, only she went further than Volney ever did. In 1893, Mary Kingsley took a scandalous trip to Africa. Scandalous? Yes, scandalous. In the late 19th century, an unchaperoned white woman traveling abroad was frowned upon, let alone one traveling to West Africa. Who knows what might have happened to her down there, eh? But Kingsley ignored idle and ignorant chatter to take up her late father's work with the black people of Africa by using her share of the will he left behind to fund a voyage to Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Gabon. There, she met with the locals on an equal footing because, they were actually her equals. Kingsley asked the natives to teach her how to live and survive in the tropics and proceeded to learn about their way of life, their food, dress, religion, art, and so on. In 1895, she became the first European to climb Mount Cameroon, living and traveling with the Fang people of Gabon and the Cameroons. But it's what Kingsley did when she returned to England that makes her a special human being. She championed a human image of the African to the English, criticizing Christian missionaries to Africa for treating the Africans like children and trying to obliterate completely their way of life. Kingsley was well ahead of her time in this respect, telling the European public that there was actual science and art behind many of the African practices that Europeans didn't understand, like the Dogon people of Mali, whose advanced astronomy and stargazing was codified into their yearly festivals, which mimicked the 50-year elliptical movement of the star Sirius B around Sirius A, something completely unknown to Western astronomers until recently. Or the Yorubas of Nigeria, whose Ifa divination rituals are actually based in a complex mathematical system that uses a form of Fibonacci sequencing to make statistical predictions. At a time when white women getting the vote was all the rave, Mary Kingsley refused to be seen as a feminist, saying that women's suffrage was, quote, a minor question, and that, quote, while there was a most vital section of men disenfranchised, women could wait. Like Beecher Stowe before her, Mary Kingsley moved the needle more than a few inches in the white world in terms of racial understanding and acceptance. Her book, Travels in West Africa, sold out in days when it first came out and became a global bestseller. But a trailblazer for Mary Kingsley, a lesser known figure today, and a woman Kingsley met herself while she travelled through the jungles of southern Nigeria in 1894, was none other than our number 3 white devil, Mary Slessor. Remember Kingsley defending African practices little understood by Europeans? Well, she might have shied away from this one. In the 1800s, the Efik nation in what is now known as Nigeria believed that twins were evil, being the spirits of mischievous gods coming to wreak havoc on earth as human beings. So sadly, for children born as twins, the Efik people would often leave newborn twins in the jungle to die. Now before the Proud Boys come yapping their gums off, talking about savagery and all that sort of stuff, let's not forget that those Greeks you all love so much left their babies in the woods as some kind of sick test to see if they were strong enough to live as warriors or something. Not looking so clever there, are we? Kylon of Sparta, or is that Planned Parenthood? Anyway, back to Mary Slessor. It was in her footsteps Kingsley followed when she first stepped out onto the African continent. Slessor had by that time already spent 17 years living as a missionary in southern Nigeria. While there, Slessor didn't petition for the British government to come in with guns blazing and ban the practice of twin killing like some might have been tempted to do. Not when the last time they came round to, quote, help the natives, they burnt down a village or two. No thank you. Instead, slowly but surely, through speaking out against the practice in their own language, which she had spent years learning, Slessor convinced the Efik people to stop the practice themselves. Today, there are numerous schools, universities, memorials, roads, and colleges dedicated to Obongawan Okoyong, Queen of Okoyong, as the Efik call her. Now, I can't go calling a good Christian woman like that a white devil, can I? No, not doing it. At number 2, it's best I show you rather than tell you about Edmund Morel. Working as a clerk for the Liverpool Elder Dempster Shipping Company in the 1800s, Morel uncovered the plot of the century against blacks in the Congo. His discovery came in stages. First, he noticed more guns and ammunition were being shipped into the Congo than iron, fabric, salt, anything like what the Congolese wanted in trade for their rubber and ivory. Quote, nothing was going in to pay for what was coming out, wrote Morel in 1895. Next, Morel worked out that the profits from the Congo's ivory and rubber returns, to the tune of hundreds of billions in today's money, were being skimmed off the top by the King of Belgium. And lastly, Morel concluded that, quote, forced labor of a terrible and continuous kind could alone explain such unheard of profits. Forced labor in which the Congo government was the immediate beneficiary. I had stumbled upon a secret society of murderers with a king for a crony man. End quote. And this is how Morel discovered the mutilation of hands in the Congo, the killing of men, the enslavement of women and children, all to force Africans to work on rubber and palm oil plantations in order to build up the tiny nation of Belgium and its even tinier king. Turning the bribes he received from King Leopold II into charitable contributions for his cause, Morel started a lobbying quest to force King Leopold to relinquish his hold over the Congo and its resources. Morel fought against the PR campaign like no other, just to get the word out to the rest of Europe about the abuses taking place in the Congo. And even after he seemed to win and King Leopold gave over all authority over the Congo to supposedly neutral hands in the Belgian government, Morel wasn't fooled and continued to draw support from famous American figures like Mark Twain and Sir Conan Doyle, the English creator of Sherlock Holmes, in his quest for the people of the Congo. As far as Leopold II was concerned, Morel was a white devil. Now we've come to the last person on our list, and for our number 1 white devil, we have to go back across the Atlantic from Africa to America. There, you'll find numerous days in different states dedicated to celebrating this man's memory, John Brown. Who was he? John Brown was a Christian evangelical redneck turned Rambo, basically. Looking around him and seeing only talks and lectures being given about the evils of slavery, John Brown grew frustrated and recruited 5 of his 10 sons and as many as he could into a militia that went around the southern states sabotaging operations, burning property, and even killing slave owners. Notorious for saying, "These men are all talk. What we need is action," before going on to kill 5 men in the Potawatomi Massacre of 1856, John Brown became a feared man across the South in the lead-up to the American Civil War. His journey towards commando abolitionism seems to have begun in 1837 when an Elijah Lovejoy was murdered in the state of Illinois for printing an abolitionist newspaper. Apparently, Brown was enraged by this murder and became more militant, publicly vowing that, quote, "Here before God in the presence of these witnesses, from this time I consecrate my life to the destruction of slavery." He went as far as to be kicked out of his local church for taking a black man into his family's pew. Though John remained a Christian, he never formally went to any church ever again after this incident. In 1859, after the failed raid at Harper's Ferry, John Brown and 2 of his sons were captured and executed in the state of Virginia by hanging. Before he died, he wrote this, quote, "I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done." 2 years later, the American Civil War began. When it ended, near 1 million soldiers were dead, while the number of dead civilians are still being worked out today. Many across America sing the song John Brown's Body in remembrance of the legend and the white devil that was John Brown. Honorable mentions include Granville Sharp, who fought the English courts in the 1700s till they made all enslaved peoples on English soil free. Then there's the Professor, Cos D'Amato, and just for the self-sacrificial act of marrying this woman and taking her off the brother's hands, this guy deserves a mention too. Peace!